So here's something I mentioned early in one of my first videos for the game. You've got this general records track here where you're keeping track of your initiative points spent for each side. You know, you flip it to the French side. Also, some offsetting problems with the counters here. You can see not well centered in the space there. But you flip to either side, so you leave your initiative difference on the one space, and then you move the spent initiative points around to keep track. But you can see on here you've got all your primary, secondary, tertiary, and discretionary. So 8 total chits here for both sides. Keeping track of your CPs as well as your SPs are all kept track here. So the problem is you end up with these stacks of tracking counters, which you have to interact with significantly every turn. So the result is you're constantly shifting through these piles of counters here, to keep track of. I guess I should probably zoom out since some cameras all over the place. But you end up with these piles. It's like, oh, where's my French, discretionary command points? Okay, I see secondary. I see primary. I've forgotten where my discretionary. Oh, no, there's tertiary. Do I have discretionary? I don't even see any French discretionary command points. Secondary. So see, this is what you're doing. You're going to be, there's tertiary, primary. Oh, there's discretionary. So you're going to be searching constantly if you don't remember these things. And that it's going to get really old really fast. So that's why I wanted to show over here the systems is based on is the old Victory game Civil War. And I want to show one of my favorite things in any war game, which is the awesome record keeping track. Now that's big, right? That's the equivalent of 4 8.5 by 11 charts. So it's big. Something like this would take a lot of room. Publishers today aren't willing to devote this kind of real estate to charts on maps. You'll notice that the plethora of charts on maps is very much a thing of the past. It's SPI. You look at any old SPI map, loaded with charts. Any old Avalon Hill map, loaded with charts. A lot of your gameplay charts, bam, right on the map. Nobody does that anymore. Maps are mostly your play area, terrain key, the basics, a turn record track. You just don't see, you don't see your CRT printed on the map anymore. You don't see terrain effects charts printed on the map anymore. It's just not done anymore. So for this game, there's a fair number of things you're keeping track of on there, but most everything is going to be handled with that general records track. Whereas, look at the old VG Civil War game, which used similar command points. It was a command point, initiative point based system. Here, the command point chits would go here, or not command point, but your resource logistics markers would be here. Resource allocation track that was done by theater in the old Civil War game, and in the On to Paris, these are your resource logistics counters. Those go directly on the map, so that's good. You don't need a track for that, right? What this had, though, there was a separate track here for your die roll difference reminder, and that was where here it's your initiative point differential. So, this thing that you're using on the general records track here had its own track on the old Civil War game, and I would agree with that here. Get it off the general records track, give it its own track. It's not going to be higher than here. It's 10 points. Not going to be higher than that. Just give it its own 10-point track. Easy peasy. Down here, then you also had your command point tracks for each of your theaters. So east, west, trans-Mississippi, and discretionary. Here that would be primary, secondary, tertiary, and discretionary. And you can track your command points right here. You know what each one is at a glance. And there's no searching through piles of counters all stacked up on one track. Then you go down here. There's your reinforcement points. Again, reinforcement points are also piled up on this general records track. Not so here. Your reinforcements are all separate at a glance. You can look over and say, oh yeah, I've still got points to spend in the Eastern Theater. I've got points to spend in the Western Theater. Over here, you're like, wow, I've got a ton of trans-miss points. Command points I got to use. Used them all up immediately over in the East. So it's just this engine here, your tracking engine, if you will. And that's never even counting the turn track here that shows, all your reinforcement points you get every turn, when reinforcements come in, how many points there are, then all of your commanders when they come in. You can lay them all right out there on the track. Just awesome. It's a masterpiece of record-keeping design for a game. And here, you get your Army strength point track. At the most here, you'll have 4 counters on there, I think, because the Union had 4 Army potentials. It's got your max points for each of your armies listed right there, so they can't go beyond that in terms of strength points. So just, and there's a general records track here too that had a lot of counters on it. But the ones you're interacting with the most, the counters that you're using the most every turn are going to be those command point counters and the initiative point counters, which were, I lost track of there it is, initiative point track. So, give these things their own tracks so you're not sorting through, trying to remember, having to constantly shift counters around and look underneath stacks. Where's my tertiary points? Where's my secondary points? Where's my primary points? So this is something that I'm envisioning already just in the first turn. I've already had to, sift through these counters numerous times. I can see myself just creating an 8.5 by 11 piece of card, playing solo, that's got primary, secondary, tertiary, discretionary command point tracks, reinforcement point tracks, and initiative point differential tracks, all separate, all being tracked on their own counters. They did a ton of charts like this for the armies over here that you're keeping track of strength points for all your armies. So why not do that? For these counters that these are the counters that you're going to be moving around up and down tracks the absolute most, more than any single other counters in the game. So, they should not all be piled onto one track, obscuring the numbers, hard to keep track, what's where. So, I'm probably going to end up creating card stock and creating my own individual tracking counters. So, end rant.